Hey, Facebook. So I don't really have an agenda. I just felt like coming on and talking a little bit about love and caring and why it's so hard and why there's nothing more important to figure out than how can we be loving and how can we be caring, starting with ourselves. Because first and foremost, we have to figure out how to meet our own core needs. And we all need love. We all need caring. We all need nurturing. And that's self-care and it's self-love and self-acceptance. And it's hard. And the thing about all of this love and caring stuff is that fundamentally, and I know you've heard this before, and it's true, fundamentally, the amount of love and caring we can give to anyone outside of ourselves, our kids, our friends, our family, it's always limited by the amount of love that we deeply, truly have for ourselves. And this whole being human thing is really hard because we're wired to kind of pay attention to everything outside of ourselves, and we're not really wired because of survival, right? We want to make sure our brain is like a computer program that's like, make sure that you survive, make sure this body stays healthy, make sure you have babies, make sure that humanity, this humanness continues on, right? First and foremost. So that's our programming. And it's really limiting. And so this whole love thing is tricky because we're not wired to deeply love. We're wired to kind of keep our eye on survival, which means we're kind of wired to fear. We're kind of wired first and foremost to like make sure we stay safe. And so that's kind of our primal wiring, which messes us up. And this love thing that we all deeply know that we need and deeply know that we crave and are seeking, whether we're aware of it or not, like love is where it's at, like for sure, right? Like that's bliss. Like when we're in love, there's nothing better. And it's really hard because from the time that we're little, we're focused on the outside in, we're focused on whether we're good enough, whether we're safe enough, and we get disconnected from loving all of ourselves and loving all of life. Because the thing about everything in life and everything about ourselves is that it's like a sine wave, and there's an equal amount above the kind of, okay, content, everything's okay, sine wave. So half of everything's going to feel positive and half of everything's going to feel negative. And our brain is going to be like, okay, the positive's good, go towards that. The negative's bad, don't do that again. And we don't have the sophistication to kind of navigate the negative, loving it as the learning opportunity that it is, right? Like our brain is like, no, don't love the bad stuff. Don't love the negative. Just don't do that. Don't do that again. That part of yourself that's really annoying or disruptive or whatever half of us, our brain judges to be the negative part, we then reject it. We don't accept it. We don't love it. And we do it all subconsciously. We don't even realize when we're little that we're doing this, that most of us end up by the time we're like 6 or 7, not loving, not accepting half of ourselves. And so then we go out in the world and we try to have healthy relationships and have a healthy society, and we're rejecting half of ourselves, which means that we're going to be rejecting half of everything outside of ourselves, which takes me back to this really important issue around love and caring, because right now what's going on in our society is absolutely breaking my heart. And what I see going on in people's families breaks my heart. There's such a crisis of caring and a lack of love, and it stems from our relationships with ourself. And so I think that's part of why I felt called to record this, because we all have like infinite responsibility in this, and we're wired again to kind of look outside of ourselves for blame and solving, when really we hold the key to all of this. And it starts with ourselves, like loving all of ourselves, accepting all of ourselves, the positive and the negative, because it's all important, it's all beautiful, it's all part of life and this growth opportunity. And so by owning that responsibility, like I need to figure out how to love all of myself, because then that frees us up to finally be able to love others in their full completeness, not just the positive things that we like about the people that we judge to be likable. And anyone we get to know really well, that is only half of them, right? Like half of everybody we know well, we're like, well, half the time they're great, and the other half the time they drive me crazy. And it's all good because it's all the growth, it's all the beauty, that's the richness of life. But we're rejecting half of it, and it's dysfunctional. We're cutting ourselves off from love, off from life, off from creativity, off from bravery, off from all of the beautiful stuff that life has to offer. And so, again, it's so awesome because when we wake up and take full responsibility for ourselves and our own ability to love ourselves fully, then suddenly we realize we don't take anything personally anymore. We realize nothing is personal. It's all just part of this faulty wiring that we have to kind of have this taking things personal thing. But once you really fully love yourself, all of yourself, if someone is critical of you, it doesn't hurt in the same way that it did before. You don't get defensive or then offensive the way you used to when you had parts of yourself that you didn't fully love or didn't fully accept. If someone says to you, because sometimes people say to me, like, all my faults, I'm married, so that's part of being married, is your husband gives you that great opportunity to point out all the things about yourself that you do not positively. And you're like, yeah, that's true. I do have that side of me that can be really bossy, that can be really demanding, that can be really forceful and impulsive and, rough. Like, I have a lot of negative qualities. And when you can love all of those things about yourself, then you don't get triggered. You're not giving your power away when people interact with you in ways that they try to kind of blame you for not being perfect. Because I'm human. I am not perfect. And it's this magic thing about loving ourselves fully that gives us that power, that then we can start to see more clearly. Then when we have conflict with people, we don't take it personally. It doesn't trigger us. We don't get angry. We don't get judgmental. We don't close our heart. We can stay loving in the face of someone really telling us how awful we are, or how imperfect we are, and all those things, or how we don't see the issue. And you're friends with me on Facebook, so you know that I go there with the political stuff, that I want to talk about guns. I want to talk about leadership. I want to talk about social justice. And I can have these really intense conversations with people where people really disagree with me. And that's okay. It doesn't trigger me. I stay calm. I respect whoever's disagreeing with me fully, because they have an authentic perspective. I may feel that they only see part of it, and I know I only see part of it. So I have to stay open. I stay open-minded, open-hearted, and compassionate. And I really do love everybody who's arguing with me, even the people that get nasty and disrespectful, because I fully respect myself. It's not threatening to me when people are disrespectful to me. It's me taking my power back, me loving everything, even the parts that maybe are ugly or uncomfortable. So that's love. Like, that's real love. It's not, a lot of us don't, for many, many years, I'll speak for myself, many years, I didn't really know true love. I knew kind of an emotional love, which really was attachment. And you'd fall in love and then instantly be afraid of losing it. That's not love. That's fear. You experienced love for a second in the present moment, and then you fell in fear of losing the love. And then you become controlling and fearful. That's not love. That's attachment, codependence. Real love is unconditional. It's saying, even in those moments that are uncomfortable, unpleasant, negative, you're fully accepting of it and fully loving, and you can find empathy. And empathy is, there's, the caring part of empathy, the empathetic concern that we care. We have to at least care first. And then the second part of empathy is the cognitive understanding, the cognitive empathy, where we kind of understand what someone else is feeling. And then the third part is the emotional empathy, where we can feel what another person is feeling. And sometimes, the cognitive piece isn't there. We can't understand. Hopefully then we can at least connect with the emotional. But first we have to at least care about each other. And so my question for anybody who's watching this is, when do you close your heart, and when do you not care? And what would need to change inside of yourself for that to never happen? Because that's what I see right now happening so often in humanity. And when people ask, well, what's the root of all of these shootings and all of these things that are happening, to me, the root is spiritual illness and mental illness, and maybe physical illness. But spiritual illness is whenever we don't feel connected, when we don't care, when we don't have empathy. That is what I define as spiritual illness. We're cut off from the truth, which is we are all one. There's this infinite source of life, which we all are. And whenever we're not feeling that connection and caring about each other, that's spiritual illness. And obviously, if someone really was aware of the connection and the oneness, they wouldn't hurt anyone else. They would care equally about all of life. And so that's my kind of dream. Pam had a dream. That's my dream. And I just felt called to hop on and share it. So thank you for listening. Jeremy, because there are temptations all along the path of love, justice, judgment, righteousness. Yeah, and so I love that, Jeremy. So temptations, right? Like when we talk about temptations to pull us out of this loving path, that's all in our ego. That's all in our ego. And our ego is like our identity, this kind of limited form or concept of who or what we are that we're trying to fiercely protect, to feel good enough, to feel safe. And so these temptations to judge, judgment comes from our ego, you know, the right or wrong, black or white. That's a limited illusion-based perception of reality. That's not real. And I understand being stuck in that because I spent years and years of my life trying to figure out judgment, trying to figure out why I got so stuck in judgment and trying to make sense of it. Like, I'm not supposed to put my head in the sand. So how do you navigate judgment? And that's why I assess and I stay open-minded and always want more and more and more information and stay super curious and investigative, because that is how I solved my brain's need to judge, to feel safe, to feel good enough, which is all false and not of service. We're always going to be limited in our understanding of truth if we're judging. So we need to kind of evolve to the higher part of our brain to recognize that that's not of service and keep assessing. No putting your head in the sand. Don't ever think you know, because there's always more information. Things are constantly changing. So keep that open mind. And the righteousness, feeling that we're right, ego. I mean, and most humans are in their ego, and that's where they're going to be until they're not, and that's okay. And what would need to shift for you to start to experience this deeper connection to life and what you really are? Because you are not just this. You are not just your ego. So I have to jump on a group coaching call for my parenting program, but thanks for letting me ramble. I got so much love for everybody, really. So thank you and have a great Thursday. Talk to you soon.